We have more meeting now.
We have more meeting now. We have more meeting now. We have more meeting now.
Good morning, Ms. Devaresti from the Australian Mission to ASEAN.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just to check that your audio and visual is okay.
Yep, it's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We see that we have the SOMI focal point from Lao PDR joining us. Good morning. Thank you for joining. Good morning, Ms. Tran. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Sorry for being a bit late.
That's okay. That's not a problem. Just to make sure that you can see and hear us clearly.
Yes, yes,
Thank you very much.
you are welcome.
Richard, how are you, Richard?
Okay, I'm all right. How are you? Good to hear your voice.
Yes, yes. How? Everything okay in Singapore? Yeah, business as usual, I heard.
SG, not lah. Business is not yet as usual, but we are trying our best to go back to normal as far as we can. It's so
Yeah.
nice to see you, SG. Very, very nice to see you.
Okay, we are sheltered in still, but business as usual, besides shelter in at home
It's
or
also
in the
not-
secretariat.
You mean you are not allowed to travel around in Jakarta? Can you?
We can, but with a lot of precaution.
Yeah.
Still very high.
Yeah.
And we thought it's good to stay indoor. We are still on work from home for the last 4 months.
I
It
see.
doesn't deteriorate our productivity. In fact, more work at home than
yeah.
we're going to the normal situation, because they are working 24 a
Yeah.
day.
Right. Absolutely correct.
So I hope we can do away very soon. But again, things are not that rosy as a second wave is coming, not from our side, but from the Western Hemisphere, I think. But
Yeah.
still, Indonesia and Philippines, I hope they will be able to work closely and get it down, the cases. We are working very hard to get the pandemic recovery.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good.
good.
So much.
Good to see you, Richard. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We will begin the online launch of the Asia 2020 Girls Report and the introduction of the Girls Leadership Index. Just before we start, we'll just go over quickly the safeguarding procedure for this event, as we have some youth representatives joining us. Ms. Sutida from Plan International, she is assigned as the safeguarding focal point for this event. We advise all participants to ask not share their personal contact details even when asked, and share any inappropriate and harmful content in the chat or comment box privately to Ms. Sutida. Thank you very much. And now to begin, we would like to welcome His Excellency Dato' Lim Jook Hoi, Secretary General of ASEAN, to deliver his welcome remarks.
Good morning. Madam Laura Huang, Chair of the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children, AWCW, representative of the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children, representative of ASEAN Committee on Women, representative of ASEAN Sectoral Body, Committee of the Permanent Representative in Jakarta, Ms. Bahagia Dangle, the Regional Director of Plan International Asia Pacific Regional Hub, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to be part of the commemoration of International Day of the Girls 2020 and to launch the Asia Girls Report. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the tireless efforts of the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children, the ASEAN Committee of Women, and all relevant ASEAN sectoral bodies in harnessing girls' empowerment and in believing in their potentials as future leader of our region. Guided by the theme, My Voice, Our Equal Future, the International Day of the Girls this year reaffirms the spirit of self-determination and the value of equity and inclusiveness, which are pivotal to the world in which girls are catalysts for change and transformation. Advancing gender equality and empowerment of women and girls has been a key priority of ASEAN and of our community building process. At the special session of women empowerment in the digital age at the 36th ASEAN Summit in June 2020, the ASEAN leader reiterated steadfast commitments to promote gender equality towards realizing an inclusive, people-oriented, people-centered ASEAN. Despite the challenges and setbacks, especially in times of crisis and uncertainty, like what we have experienced at the moment, COVID-19 pandemic, we have witnessed notable progress that enable girls to learn, lead, decide, and thrive. Through our endeavors to improve access and quality to education, more girls are able to go to schools and tertiary education, with Singapore, Brunei, Thailand, and Malaysia as leading example of the highest enrollment and completion rates. This is particularly important as education is associated with positive outcomes for girls, including greater awareness of their rights, greater participation in decision-making, and reduced probability of child marriage. In the area of health and nutrition, all 10 ASEAN member states have successfully reduced child stunting, with the decline over 25% in 2 decades. Increasing number of girls in the region are also informed on reproductive health and rights, which will pave the ways for effective solutions to early union and adolescent pregnancy. Without a doubt, the region has strived to ensure that the community is safe and secure for participation, creativity, and self-expression of all girls. Currently, the Regional Plan of Action on the Protection of Children from all forms of online exploitation and abuse, and the Regional Plan of Action for the Rights of Children in the context of migration are being developed in consultation with not only ASEAN member states, but also children, girls, and boys. These instruments demonstrate our conviction to end violence and discrimination in all space, offline and online. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, aside from the provision of enabling environment and infrastructure for girls, it is imperative that we have also fostered supportive attitudes in behavior and discourage stereotypes, social norms, and prejudices in our societies. In other words, we must inculcate the culture of girls' rights and the language of girls' empowerment in all areas and at every level of our ASEAN community. Certainly, this will require sustained investments in girls' development from childhood to adolescence in order to strengthen education, economic opportunity, social protection, health services, political representation, as well as law and policy. With the right ecosystem, infrastructure, resources, and altitudes, all girls in ASEAN can possess the sense of confidence and capacity to become powerful and influential women of the future. They are in no way helpless victim, but source of power and power to cope, to adapt, to arrive at a solution, and to build back better with dignity and resilience. This is ever more pertinent as we are working towards recovering for the COVID-19 pandemic. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, A strong community can be built when power and potential of girls are unleashed. As such, we need to continue to work together to forge robust partnership to boost age and gender responsive resources and to forge ahead with multi-sectoral engagement and new ways of working. I would like to thank Plan International and all the ASEAN stakeholders for their learning platform on Girls Leadership Index. It is with high hope that the analysis from the index and the discussion today will contribute to our understanding on how investment in critical area can help advance gender inequality and empowerment of girls and women. It is also with trust that by taking into account the voices, needs, and agency of our most important partners, all girls in ASEAN, our community will remain cohesive, responsive, and resilient amidst fast-paced changes and emerging opportunities. With these words, I wish you all a successful forum and fruitful deliberation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Excellency. Continuing on, we will hear welcome remarks from Ms. Bhagyashree Dengle, Regional Director of Plan International Asia Pacific Regional Hub. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the ASEAN Secretariat for co-hosting this online launch of Plan International's 2020 Asia Girls Report, introducing the Girls Leadership Index. It is especially meaningful to do this ahead of International Day of the Girl Child on 11th October. Thank you, ASEAN, for bringing us together to celebrate the achievements of women and girls across the region and beyond, and for giving us a platform to continue to explore what more we can do to advance their cause together. In 2015, 193 countries adopted the Sustainable Development Goals and committed to equitable and inclusive development that leaves no one behind. ASEAN and other Asian regional bodies subsequently incorporated the SDGs into cross-regional development cooperation platforms. As a result, the regional and national discourses and actions in Asia are more focused on girls and gender than ever before. Yet, girls throughout the region continue to experience gender-related restrictions and inequalities that prevent them from realizing their full potential and assuming the role of leadership. Adolescence is a particularly important window of time when every girl develops her talents, skills, and leadership capabilities that will enable or constrain her to make her own decisions and to pursue opportunities that will affect her now and in the future. In 2020, Asia Girls Report therefore focuses on this critical window and makes the case for investing in girls now so they become the women leaders of tomorrow. The report also introduces Plan's Asia Girls Leadership Index, which consolidates existing international and reliable data to present the status of girls' leadership across 6 key domains in 19 South and Southeast Asian countries. The index, especially when combined with the advancement of country-specific adolescent girls' development frameworks, which will be discussed today as part of our recommendations, is an instrument that is strongly recommended to be used by national governments and their development partners to monitor and measure the advancement of girls' empowerment and leadership. One of the reasons these interventions are so powerful is because they were developed right here in this region. Although there is more to do to advance the cause of women and girls in Asia, our homegrown best practices will help show the way. On that note, I hope our discussions today will lead to greater commitment and actions to reduce gender inequality in our region and ensure our girls can enjoy all opportunities to learn, lead, decide, and thrive, and become the future of our region and the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bhagyashree. Following that, we will have Dr. Sita Sumrit, Assistant Director and Head of the Poverty Eradication and Gender Division of the ASEAN Secretariat, to present us with ASEAN's commitment to ensure gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. Dr. Sita, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. For this session, we will be presenting you with the ASEAN's commitment to ensure gender equality and empowerment of women and girls on behalf of Madame Semvada Keng, the Vice Chair of ACW, who cannot be with us today. So first slide, please. So we would like to firstly reaffirm that ASEAN as a region is committed to the promotion of gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. We also recognize the importance to address gender dimension across 3 community pillars through gender mainstreaming strategies, especially in the context of the complementarities between ASEAN Community Vision 2025 and the SDGs. Next slide, please. Here, we would like to present that gender equality is the value that is enshrined in the general principles of ASEAN, including the ASEAN Charter, ASEAN Human Rights Declaration, as well as the ASEAN Community Vision 2025. Next slide, please. Of course, promoting gender equality is the work and the ambition of the 3 community pillars. But here we would like to cite the example of the ASEAN Sociocultural Community Blueprint 2025 that emphasize the engagement of the people and the inclusive, sustainable, resilient, and dynamic community. Next slide, please. So here, we would like to bring to your attention the ASEAN instruments to advance empowerment of women and girls. As early as 1988, the Declaration of the Advancement of Women in the ASEAN region was adopted. Then in 2010, the Hanoi Declaration on the Enhancement of Welfare and Development of ASEAN Women and Children was adopted in the 17th ASEAN Summit held in Hanoi, Vietnam. In 2013, the Declaration on the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Children was adopted. Aside from the declarations, there are also important regional plan of actions that followed the adoption of the declaration, including the regional plan of action on the elimination of violence against women and the regional plan of action on the elimination of violence against children. So as you can see, the earlier commitment of ASEAN to promote the rights of women and children focused upon the issue of ending violence against them. In terms of the mechanism of ASEAN to advance empowerment of women and girls, the ASEAN Committee on Women, or ACW, is the oldest existing women's body within the ASEAN and has been the leader on efforts to eliminate violence against women in the region. So for the current work plan, 2016 to 2020, there are 5 priority areas as listed here, including promotion of women leadership. And of course, when ACW talks about women, it's also cover girls and adolescent girl. Also, in the 5 key priority areas, ACW works to ensure the non-gender stereotyping and social norms changes, as well as gender mainstreaming across 3 pillars: elimination of violence against women, and very importantly, the economic empowerment of women and the protection and empowerment of women in vulnerable situations. Next slide, please. So the other very important mechanism to advance empowerment of women and girls in ASEAN is the ACWC, or the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children. ACWC is actually a consultative intergovernmental human rights mechanism within ASEAN, and that their mandate is based upon CEDAW and CRC, or the Convention on the Rights of the Child. Aside from that, ACW and ACWC has been working really closely together to mainstream gender across the 3 ASEAN community pillars. So the ad hoc working group on gender mainstreaming has been established between ACW and ACWC to actualize this commitment and efforts. Next slide, please. Recently, especially in 2017, there are more ASEAN instruments to advance the empowerment of women and girls. And as we can see, there has been an evolution in the paradigm, the way we look at the empowerment of women and girls in ASEAN, from a more protection and violence focused approach to a more empowering approach. The Declaration on the Gender Responsive Implementation of the ASEAN Community Vision 2025 and the SDGs was adopted in 2017. So this provide us with the foundation on gender mainstreaming, not only as the work of sociocultural pillar, but as the work and the mandate and the aspiration, if we may say so, of the 3 community pillars. Also, the action agenda on mainstreaming women's economic empowerment was adopted in 2017. So this action agenda focuses on how women can can fulfill their potentials as economic agents and economic leaders of the region. Also in 2017, the joint statement on promoting women, peace and security in ASEAN was adopted. And since then, there has been a very exciting momentum to advance this agenda in the ASEAN region, again, across the 3 pillars. Next slide, please. For this slide, we would like to bring your attention to a very earnest and important efforts on mainstreaming gender across the 3 community pillars of ASEAN. So this year, the ASEAN Gender Mainstreaming Strategic Framework is being finalized and is intended to serve as a tool for the ASEAN member states and the ASEAN sectoral bodies to achieve gender equality goals, as well as to be clear on the responsibilities of the bodies and entities on how to do gender in ASEAN. It will serve as the overarching framework to guide the efforts to mainstream gender perspectives in all areas of work. And of course, it is hoped to guide us on how to build more capacities and identify focal points, especially at the ASEAN sector bodies level on gender mainstreaming. For 2020, we have identified very important milestones under the ASEAN chairpersonship of Vietnam. So the ASEAN leaders' special session on women's empowerment in digital age was held in June 2020, followed by the ASEAN Ministerial Dialogue on strengthening women's role for sustainable peace and security in September 2020. So this is part of the efforts to advance further the WPS of Women, Peace and Security agenda in ASEAN. In the next ASEAN Summit, there's a plan for the ASEAN Women Leaders Summit to be held. And as mentioned earlier, this year we'll be finalizing the ASEAN Gender Mainstreaming Strategic Framework, as well as the ASEAN Gender Outlook, leaving no women and girls behind. So the ASEAN Gender Outlook is our efforts to look at the SDGs through gender lens and identify what could be done in terms of gender data and statistics. This year also, we will finalize the regional study on women, peace and security in ASEAN. So this is the first regional study to analyze how we can go about WPS agenda in ASEAN and how WPS is being interpreted from different lens and angles from the points of view of the ASEAN member states. As mentioned in the speech remarks by SG Dato Lim Jong Hoi, two very important instruments that will affect for the better the lives of the girls in ASEAN are the Regional Plan of Actions on the Protection of Children from all forms of online exploitation and abuse in ASEAN 2021-2025 is being developed this year to be adopted under the chairpersonship of Brunei next year. Also, we are working on the Regional Plan of Action on implementing the ASEAN Declaration on the Rights of Child in the context of migration. This will also be adopted next year under the chairpersonship of Vietnam. So these are the milestones in 2020, but moving forward, there are more exciting opportunities for us to work together to ensure that the rights of women and girls will be realized in the ASEAN community. So this is the end of the presentation for this session. So I hand over the floor to the MC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Sita. We will now see a video on an overview of the 2020 Asia Girls Report, the Girls Leadership Index, as prepared by Plan International, followed by a presentation on the index by Ms. Chaimaporn Xiang Yen, Regional Evidence and Research Lead of the Plan International Asia Pacific Regional Hub, and Ibu Dini Widyastuti, Executive Director of Plan International Indonesia Foundation. Our apologies. It seems that we have a technical issue with the audio. We are looking to fix it right now.
Sometimes I wonder what it means to be a girl. I think we like to look pretty. We do our hair, we do homework. But most importantly, we laugh, we learn, we play, and we dream. I am a girl with big dreams. I dream of becoming a pilot, an engineer. And when I grow up, I dream of a family with a man that I love too. Road isn't always safe and easy. Boys bully me. Men desire me. I do the same day after day, cooking and cleaning. But the questions remain. I hear the whispers of my parents that my dowry becomes more expensive by the day. Because we don't have a lot. They say I'm a burden to my family. They say I must allow the hands of a strange man to greet me so my parents can live worry-free. I have to obey my husband to be, take care of his family. I have to drop out of school and leave my dreams behind because what good is an education for a young girl expected to be a homemaker? Become a mother before my body is ready. And I wonder, is this all it means to be a girl? That is not my dream. My dream is to stay in school so I have skills that will help my family find a better way to make a living. The people, Plan International, told me what I need to know to fight for my dreams. I want to change my destiny, and I want my friends to hear about it so they can change theirs too. We will unlock the power of girls, and we will not stop until girls are seen, listened to, and valued. Also say, we too can change the world, and to do so, we have to study, learn new skills, so we can choose who we want to be and when to marry.
As we're having technical issues with the video, we are going to be restarting the video shortly.
Sometimes I wonder what it means to be a girl. I think we like to look pretty. We do our hair, we do homework. But most importantly, we laugh, we learn, we play, and we dream. I am a girl with big dreams. I dream of becoming a pilot, an engineer, or even a prime minister. And when I grow up, I dream of a family with a man that I love too. But the road isn't always safe and easy. Boys bully me. Men desire me. I do the same day after day, cooking and cleaning. But the questions remain. I hear the whispers of my parents that my dowry becomes more expensive by the day. Because we don't have a lot, they say I'm a burden to my family. They say I must allow the hands of a strange man to greet me so my parents can live worry-free. I'll have to obey my husband-to-be, take care of his family. I'll have to drop out of school and leave my dreams behind because what good is an education for a young girl expected to be a homemaker? I'll have to become a mother before my body is ready. And I wonder, is this all it means to be a girl? That is not my dream. My dream is to stay in school, so I'll have skills that will help my family find a better way to make a living. The people at Plan International told me what I need to know to fight for my dreams. I want to change my destiny, and I want my friends to hear about it so they can change theirs too. We will unlock the power of girls, and we will not stop until girls are seen, listened to, and valued. To girls, I say, we too can change the world. And to do so, we have to study, learn new skills, so we can choose who we want to be and when to marry. We can make a wave of change, not only in our lives, but for others in the community as well. Our voices might be little now, but little by little, a little becomes a lot.
Khun Kai, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning to you from Bangkok. My name is Shamaiporn, and I am the Regional Evidence and Research Lead at Plan International Regional Hub. I am very honored today to introduce you to the Asia Girls report and the Asia Girls Leadership Index that was launched earlier this year. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. The Asia Girls Leadership Index is part of Plan International's 2020 Asia Girls report that explore the situation of girls and women across the region and discuss the complex and dynamic transition that girls undertake from adolescence into adulthood. In the report, there is the Asia Girls Leadership Index that measures the opportunity of adolescent girls and young women to develop their skills and capability across 6 key domains
which are education, health, economic opportunities, protection, voice and representation, and national law and policies. Next slide, please. And the reason that we are calling for more investment in girls' leadership is because if you look at the world population of girls today under the age of 18, there are about 1.1 billion girls, and half of them live in Asia. In many parts of our region, girls and women still face everyday gender-related restriction and inequality, and especially adolescent girls, when they have a very small window of time that they can develop their leadership capabilities, and any decision made for them during that period of time can potentially affect and change their life forever. The Asia Girls Report and the Girls Leadership Index therefore focuses on this critical window of time, and we are making the case for national governments and stakeholders to invest more in girls now so we have more women leaders of our region tomorrow. Next slide, please. So when we conceptualize our research, we wanted to look for whether there is a definition of girls' leadership. And from our desk study, surprisingly, there is no single universally agreed upon definition of girls' leadership. And Plan International did not intend to come up with a new definition. So you will see that in the report, we focus more on looking at the enabling and constraining factors that can affect adolescent girls' ability to develop their leadership skills and capability. So for the purpose of this study, we consider leadership in a broader term, which consisted of competencies, skills, and environmental conditions that are required to support girls to exercise their rights, their agency, their voice and representation, and lead their own life, their household, and also communities. Next slide, please. So the research cover, as I mentioned briefly before, 6 domains that are critical to create the conditions that will support girls to become leaders. And the 6 domains are education, economic opportunity, political voice and representation, protection, health, law, and policies. And we looked at these 6 domains in 19 countries, which are member states of ASEAN and SAARC. Next slide, please. So there are 4 main research components. Of course, the first one, which is the major component in our report, is the Asia Girls Leadership Index. And we complemented the data and the value of the index with qualitative data as well, with our desk review, with our online survey, face-to-face survey with girls and young women. And also we interview some girls and young women to get their voice and opinion in our report. Next slide, please. I would like to talk a little bit about how the index, which is the main component of the report, was constructed. So we follow the 10-step process recommended by OECD. Due to the time limitation today, I will not have I will not be able to go through all the 10-step process, but here I rather talk briefly about the 5 key steps that we took to construct the index. So we start from scanning the global databases that are internationally recognized and select relevant indicators that deem essential for girls' leadership. And some of the some of the databases that we scanned included the UN SDG indicators, UNDP, Human Development Index, World Bank databases. So after we selected the key indicators, we conducted a normalization process, and this is to turn the indicators into units less, so we can calculate the result of the indicators. After that, if there are some missing values, we have to deal with them using different method, and then we calculated the regional overall ranking and also the domain ranking. And this process was led by a statistician who was part of our research team. If you are interested in reading in details about the methodology of the index construction, it's included in the report as an annex. Next slide, please. Here is just to show you briefly on the key domains, 6 domains, and our final list of indicators that were selected as to be part of the index. As you can see here, we have 23 indicators, and each of them is linked to the SDGs. Next slide, please. And here is the key findings. After we calculate our index ranking and index value, and we can see that overall, the ASEAN member states are doing better than the SAARC member states. We have the 3 highest ranked countries. As you can see on the presentation, the first rank is Singapore, and Singapore placed first rank in 4 out of 6 domains, which are education, economic opportunity, protection, and health. Ranking at number 2 is the Philippines, and the Philippines score first place in laws and policies, following by Vietnam that score first place in voice and representation in law and policies. And the lowest ranking countries on the index are Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and all of which are members of SAARC. Next slide, please. This slide, you can see that in addition to the overall index ranking, we also calculated the rankings within each domain. You can see overall, no country received the same ranking across 6 domains. And that means that each country has areas of comparative strength and also areas that demand improvements. I would like to quickly summarize here that overall domain rankings, we still see the same trend that ASEAN countries perform better than SAARC countries. And you can see listed below are the top 3 rankings in each domain. Due to the limitation of time, so I cannot go into details of each, the ranking of each domain, but happy to answer any questions later if you have questions, and encourage you to download the full report, including the full data set and analysis. The link is included as part of my presentation. On that note, I will hand over to my colleague Dini, who will talk about why the index matters and how countries in our region can use it as their monitoring tool to measure the advance of girls' leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Khun Kai. Ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, honorable guests, I'm happy to be here this morning to share with you a little bit the perspective from country and how the index can be useful at the country level and of course at ASEAN. If we can have the next slide, please. I have to tell you before this is I love indexes. not because just the total number and see where Indonesia, I'm coming from Indonesia. I'm from Plan Indonesia, by the way, because I know for Indonesia, in most of the index, if not all, Indonesia will be in the middle, whatever index it is. SDGs, Gender Gap Index, and here, as you can see in the previous slides, in Asia Girls Leadership Index, also Indonesia is ranking 10, right? So we're in the middle of all the others, 19. So it is like that. But to me, what is interesting is the nuances. If you can see, this is although the different. The first thing that is interesting, if we can have the slides after this, is that this is probably a really comprehensive index which you can use for Asian leaders and also civil society leaders and government to see the regional measurements progress in one slide, in one table. Often when we talk about girls, it caught in between, you know, adults and children's, you know, when we talk about adolescent girls. So it's really difficult to find um, you know, measurements that we can you know, make a reference to. So this index is really useful for everyone to see the measurement, and we can use it to measure progress also over the years. And it is based on data-driven research, very solid one. Um, yeah, that we can compare as well. And then what is actually interesting is that it reflects the current situations of adolescent girls and young women. And when you look into the breakdowns, which you can see in the report, I think that's also reflections of context of social norms and culture norms and religions, but also policy context. Um, this index also fill the gap of data on adolescent girls, um, which is very useful. I mean, coming from perspective of civil society and from government, if you look later at the breakdown, so for example, in the area of educations, for example, ASEAN is very quite a diverse region, right? So at one side you have countries like Singapore, Malaysia, who's already advanced in terms of education, but although also some other countries and Indonesia like in the middle of it. But in many countries in ASEAN, you would see that the critical issues of the dropout rate or the lower secondary rate for girls. Um, and then also low enrollment for tertiary education. So I think this is really important point for decision makers if we are really serious about advancing girls leadership, and this is something that we need to tackle in many of the ASEAN countries. Likewise, if you look at the economic opportunity and in particular the percentage of girls and young women not in education and not in training, not in employment, the NEET, the rate is also quite high, about 20% or more in some countries like Indonesia, Philippines, Myanmar. And if you look at the protection, of course, child early and forced marriage is still an issue in our region, even though maybe if you compare to the other regions to South Asia, it is still better. But having 15%, 13% of our girls married before the age of 18, it is really intolerable, yeah, unacceptable. And the other things that I think we can look at this index, which can be useful in terms of policy making and directions of program, is we look at the adolescent birth rate, which is high in many countries in this region, in Philippines, in Indonesia, Cambodia, in Laos. I think it tells us something. So the stories behind these numbers are actually what we need to find out, and the policies behind these numbers if we want to get a better measurement when we measure this index again in next year or the year after, or maybe 6 years from now. So that's, you know, that point of that this index hopefully can be used to inform the design and the relevant strategic programming to invest in girls either that's in education or sexual and reproductive rights educations, or in fact, probably vocational skills. And we believe that investment in any of these areas lead to also improvement in other indicators of development and leadership for girls. The next slide is, can we have, now, okay. The full report, we really encourage you to look at the full report because it is really rich. We can see as a region how we are performing, what needs to be prioritized, and as a country, what needs to be prioritized. There's a lot in there. And also maybe learn from each other as well. And I think this is the role of ASEAN, how we can learn from the countries who are more advanced in some of the areas. Okay, thank you. I think it's just like a short sharing from my side. I'll give it back to ASEAN Secretariat.
Thank you, Ibudini and Ms. Chaimaporn. Next, we will have a presentation by Ms. Zara Rappaport, Regional Gender Equality and Inclusion Lead, and Ms. Raylan De La Paz, Senior Officer for Regional Girls' Rights in Policy and Advocacy of Plan International Asia Pacific Regional Hub, for a call to action to invest in adolescent girls' development framework. The floor is yours.
Yes, good morning to our distinguished guests. I am Raylan De La Paz, Senior Officer for Regional Girls' Rights Policy and Advocacy with the Plan International Asia Pacific Regional Hub. So I will be the first one presenting, and picking off from the last presentation about how countries can use the Girls Leadership Index. We are going to present now some recommendations and a call to action that we hope ASEAN member countries can consider. If you could go to the next slide, please. All right, so our first recommendation is to address gender disparities in early childhood. Although the focus of the report is in adolescence, we recognize the importance of addressing gender disparities at this early stage. So a girl can truly enjoy her full and equal rights. And there are two main reasons for this recommendation. The first one is addressing gender disparities at this stage because there are many forms of these that can happen in the life of a girl. If you can look at this illustration that we see in this slide, these gender disparities can affect a girl in so many ways and can have a lifelong impact on her. The second reason is because early childhood is usually the stage when girls and boys begin to learn gendered norms and expectations from his or her families, communities, and even society. And if this is not addressed immediately, these can be passed on from generation to generation. If you look closely at this slide or the graphics in this slide, you will see how these intergenerational cycle or cycle of intergenerational gender disparities can affect a girl. So it's important that we start early in addressing gender disparities so that we don't contribute to a culture that propagates gender inequality that can then affect girls of the next generation and so on and so forth. So if we are intentional in designing programs and policies that would address gender disparity in early childhood, we can actually stop, or better yet, reverse this cycle of intergenerational gender disparities. Our second recommendation, if you will go
Ms. Raylan? Ms. Raylan, I think your connection cut off. Perhaps we can invite Ms. Zara to take over.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zara.
Thank you very much. So I need you to go 2 slides forward. And one more. Great. So thank you all again. The key call to action for our Girls Leadership Index is investing in adolescent girls, as several speakers have already mentioned. So Plan International is calling on all countries in Asia to invest in adolescent girls now, in particular by adopting an adolescent girls development framework as part of their national planning efforts in line with SDG progress. Adolescent girl frameworks use country-specific adolescent girl data that can help countries ensure they're investing in the correct or the right enabling environments to promote girls' development. Next slide, please. So why do we feel we need a framework? While adolescent girls are pivotal for the achievement of the SDGs, they're not sufficiently represented among SDG indicators, and they're very often neglected in related international and national monitoring frameworks. During the mapping that was done for the Girls Leadership Index and other research areas, we did see there was a lot of missing data, which is one of the reasons this Girls Leadership Index is so important, is it helps fill those gaps. So the use of the specific data, which builds on the most relevant SDG indicators for adolescent girls, can help countries ensure they're investing in the right enabling environment. Next slide, please. So now that we know why, what is an adolescent girl framework? It's considered an adaptable tool with the opportunity to strengthen collaborative efforts for adolescent girl well-being. It's intended to be holistic and cross-sectoral. It uses country-specific data, which builds on the relevant SDG indicators for adolescent girls with age and sex disaggregated national census data. Next slide, please. To show an example, Lao PDR in 2016 launched the NOI framework. This is the first ever national adolescent girls development framework in line with the 2030 agenda. This visual monitoring tool highlights SDG related indicators and the importance of the well-being of adolescents in the country. The NOI framework calls for increased preventive and protective investments in adolescent girls so that by 2030, when NOI turns 25, young women in Laos will have achieved gender equality and will be contributing to the nation's development. This is necessarily supported by the government and its key development partners. And the framework presents the situation of adolescent girls related to 5 SDGs that the government of Laos, along with consultation with adolescent girls themselves, have considered most relevant to the development of adolescent girls. Next slide, please. So the 5 indicators related to the SDGs are on education, sexual reproductive health, nutrition, employment, and gender equality. The framework centers around Noi, a created persona, a 10-year-old girl who was introduced on the International Day of the Child in 2016. And the framework presents a vision for Noi when she and her peers will have transitioned through adolescence into adulthood. And when Noi celebrates her 25th birthday will be 2030. So the specific indicators, since this is a bit hard to see, that the Lao PDR has selected, and they're linked to the SDGs, are SDG 2.2.3, prevalence of anemia for girls aged 15 to 19, SDG 3.7.2, the adolescent birth rate, SDG 4.1.2, out of school girls aged 15 to 17, SDG 5.3.1, prevalence of child early and forced marriage, and SDG 8.7.1, prevalence of girls in child labor. So the benefit of this is taking a holistic approach and cross-sectoral approach, which also necessarily requires good partnership and good national planning to address all of these issues at once. And in addition to setting the national goals for adolescent girls, the NOI 2030 framework serves as a platform for multi-sectoral programming to achieve progress on these important issues. brings together unique expertise of the government and its development partners to collectively identify and address the needs of adolescent girls in Lao PDR. And the framework calls for partnerships across all sectors to invest in adolescent girls, as partnerships are considered essential to achieving the SDGs. Next slide, please. So we have identified 6 key steps to developing your very own adolescent girl framework. First, you identify the key priorities, which involve developing a provincial level adolescent girl profile, which involves consultations with girls and secondary data research based on your local census or any locally available data. Step 2 involves aligning it with the SDGs. So for Lao PDR, it was looking at their national census indicators and aligning them with the SDG indicators. Yes, and so that leads us into SDG localization, where you compare the selected global SDG indicator with the local SDG indicator to ensure either availability of data, or if it's not available yet, that it can be collected. There also is a step where if an SDG indicator doesn't exist on an issue you find very important, then here's where you would add it as well, and you would collect the data. It would still be related to the overall SDG goal. So then you do national alignment, which is reviewing the available national statistics indicators that you will be able to measure largely through national mechanisms such as 5-year census surveys, health surveys, education surveys. You then go through your customization phase, where you develop your customized National Adolescent Girls Development Framework, where you have selected the top 4 to 6 needs and identified indicators that will measure the progress of those needs for adolescent girls based on the indicators you've identified in the previous steps. And finally, you have a government commitment. So you work with your national government, key partners to secure commitment from all different sectors to track this data, but also to invest in it so that progress can be achieved. Because progress won't be achieved if we're not making investment commitments and programming and taking actions. The data will just remain the same. So taking a lesson from Lao PDR, in 2017, the NOI framework was the impetus, was the driving force behind an interagency partnership between the United Nations World Food Program and UNFPA to work on an advocacy initiative to improve access to nutrition, food security, education, and reproductive information, which specifically led to the improvement of some of the indicators as well. Next slide, please. So in developing your adolescent girl framework, we hope that ASEAN member states will consider the following elements to make sure that the adolescent framework is holistic and successful. So the first one is, of course, a focus on adolescence. With some of the most significant life transitions occurring during adolescence, to maximize the opportunity to positively affect girls' lives and life trajectories, investments in adolescence, especially early adolescence, can have the greatest impact. We also request that everyone consider evidence-informed decisions. So decision makers and stakeholders to consider the evidence when making their decisions and not base it on what we think, but do actual consultations and a bit of actual research before committing to certain specific indicators for progress. Next slide, please. Then, of course, we have the multi-sectoral engagement. This framework specifically looks at a holistic approach and not just one SDG, because I think, as many of us can see, many SDGs are related either directly or indirectly to the well-being of the adolescent girl and the overall progress of the SDGs. So we do need multi-sectoral engagement because the needs of adolescents are incredibly diverse and incredibly complex. No single agency or sector can deliver one single solution. We all have to work together on this. This leads us to the robust partnerships, which included UNFPA, the government of Laos, and an adolescent girl working group that was led by UNFPA and Plan International, with many civil society partners that all agreed to direct some of their programming and influencing specifically to adolescent girls to help improve the progress. Next slide, please. So the following two elements are age and gender responsive resourcing. So investment requires resourcing. And the resourcing we're looking at is to be directed towards adolescent girls as well. So this includes community budgets that will have direct impact on adolescent girls, support timely investments that promote their development specifically, and countries will need to complement this budgeting by integrating age sensitivity to their own analyses. Also inclusivity, right? So we need the inclusion of girls in this development planning. So girls are at the center of this. So consulting with them, getting their opinion, what matters most to them is crucial to having, to developing a plan that will serve their needs as well. As well, we have to recognize that adolescent girls are a very diverse group, along with cultural norms, socio-political and economic contexts, geographic factors, and individual abilities that all affect different girls' needs in different places and different times. Next slide, please. So the final three elements, I know there's quite a lot, but trust us, this comes naturally as you're developing your framework. We have to do new ways of working. The old ways of working did not adequately address the needs of adolescent girls or adolescents in general. So to affect lasting change, we need to be prepared to be innovative in our areas, in our ways of working. We request a gender transformative approach, and we request this in actually all of our work now. It goes beyond addressing the specific symptoms or individual daily needs to transforming the value and position of girls in society, to really try and address the gender disparities and the gender inequality based on the value of girls in society as well, and address the root causes of gender inequality as well. Next slide. And finally, monitoring and evaluation. To monitor the progress effectively and learn, while the 5 or 6 SDGs are very important, to monitor in a more robust manner, Lao PDR and development partners developed an adolescent girl situational analysis, which really builds the profile of an adolescent girl, and it is quite comprehensive. And that kind of evidence base can also really inform the next steps of planning and programming and where you're going to invest your money. So we do believe that investing in adolescent girls and creating an enabling environment for girls' development will help drive local, national, and global development in line with the SDGs. The choices made in a girl's adolescence can set into motion a lifelong trajectory of inequality and poverty, or one of progress and equality and achievement and opportunity. This is why we cannot wait until girls are adults to start supporting them on the path to equality. We need to start earlier and make sure that every girl can learn, lead, decide, and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zara. As according to our timekeeper, we are behind schedule. We will be swiftly moving on to the next session, which is the panel session. We would like to invite Mr. Rasha Sikulovic, the Regional Head of Child Protection and Partnerships of Plan International Asia Pacific Regional Hub, to start the session and introduce the panelists, please. Thank you. Mr. Rasha, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning from stormy and gray and rainy Bangkok. Your Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, it's a real pleasure to having you all with us this morning while we are celebrating the International Day of the Girl. Even though we are facing some stormy realities, we are also here to remind ourselves that our spirits are strong and unbroken in solidarity and unity, and that while we are celebrating the International Day of the Girl, we are also celebrating our wonderful collaboration with the ASEAN Secretariat and the ASEAN member states. So it's my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce our speakers. We have 4 amazing motivational, inspirational speakers and champions of gender equality. As they say, it takes a village to raise a child, and it certainly takes a world to achieve gender equality and empowerment of girls. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our first distinguished speaker, His Excellency Mr. Kung Poak, who is the Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN for ASEAN Social Cultural Community. Mr. Poak, Your Excellency, it's a real honor to have you with us in this panel discussion. And as we are facing this unprecedented challenges, as we are acutely aware of all the challenges that the pandemic, the COVID-19 is bringing to us, could you please share with us what ASEAN is doing? What are the key priorities to actually keep the girls empowered and to keep gender equality on the agenda? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raza, for your kind introductions, and it's also good to see you again here, during this very important events, the launch of the report. First of all, we'd like, to congratulate you and the teams and all the relevant stakeholders, for producing such an important report. We can see so many, good points that we can, also further look at, and how we can translate those recommendations into concrete actions and so on. Of course, when we look at the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been talking about this for more than 7 months now. Looking at all aspects of COVID-19, especially its impact on the livelihood of the people. Of course, the impact from COVID-19 pandemic has fallen on different people, at different levels of severities as well. And we can see is that the group of people that has been hit the hardest, our vulnerable population, and girls and women and persons with disabilities, the elderly, are among these vulnerable groups of people. Of course, another things that I would like to also highlight, we can see is the overwhelming numbers of young women or women, working in the high-risk sector, for example, as the nurses, medical doctors, also work in the hospitality, sectors, and also nursing home and so on. So if we look at, the compounding risk here is very high, for women and young women who work in those sectors. Of course, there are many other, areas that we've been discussing, over the last 7 months. For example, the education impact, the health impact, and also, the economic impact, that have kind of severe consequences on young women and especially girls. At a trying time like this, we can see is, last time we had this workshop on, early marriage. One of the key concerns that we find is that, many families are struggling. They lost income, not just because of the COVID-19, but also, as a result of our response measures as well. For example, lockdown and so on. So there's a high possibilities that many of these young girls will be forced to marry early. And that would, destroy the opportunities that they would become, somebody who can, contribute, meaningfully to the society, or can advance in the careers and so on. So of course, COVID-19 is further exacerbating the inequalities that we are facing, and also, putting millions of people in poverty. And many of these peoples are women and girls. So it's a major setback, on our efforts to advance the implementation of the SDG, but also our blueprints and many of our work plans as well. So we can say, in short, that the consequences are very serious, and we continue to learn about it, each day. So I can't say is that now that we have a full and comprehensive understanding how COVID-19 is impacting our regions or any particular group in our society. But I think it's some things that we learn each day, with more information and data. Let me start by saying this, I think, through our collaborative efforts that we have with our partners, we come up with many policies, programs, and activities. And I can see, some of the recommendations in the report are also in line with what we've been, trying to do, in our work plan, and also, in various documents that have been produced by the ASEAN regions. Some things that I hope that we can do more is, to translate those recommendations and ideas into concrete actions. We know that, for example, education is important, skills is important, ensuring economic opportunities is important. But the next things for us is how we are going to put our commitments into, practice, and then invest enough resources so that we can achieve some things out of it, and making sure that our girls will, have the same opportunities, or, can strive in the society. A few points I would like to share in terms of the priority areas that we want to look at. First, of course, we are the state parties and duty bearers, to international convention and treaties. So it is our obligation, to make sure that we have all the laws and policies to protect, our child, and in this case, adolescents, girls, and women, from exploitation, abuse, and violence. Of course, we've been doing quite a lot on that front, but of course, there's always something that we can do more, right? I mean, to make sure that, we meet all the regional priorities and our global obligation at the same time. So this is some things that I would hope that, we will continue to explore the gaps, and, do more, to make sure that we fill the gap with the right policies, the right, legislation, so that we can, better protect our women and girls here. The second areas that I would like to highlight is the, changing the mindset is very difficult. We have to acknowledge that, some of the practices are socially or culturally accepted, and we are trying our best in terms of our awareness raising efforts. We've been working with, the national governments, civil society organizations, and not just, with women, but also men as well. How, all of the stakeholders can work together to raise awareness about this, that some of the practices are not good, or even harmful, to girls and women. So I think it's a work in progress, I have to say, and it requires stronger, collaboration. And in this case, I hope that, going forward, and with this report and with a lot of recommendations, ASEAN and Plan International, and other UN agencies and partner can continue to work on this, to raise awareness, to make, people understand, the needs of, promoting gender equalities here, and giving girls and women, the kind of opportunity they deserve. The third area, I would look at it more of, how can we do more to provide, the necessary support, for our women and girls, so that they can strive, so that they can grow, so they can advance in their career. Of course, I can also see that in the reports as well, some of the key, recommendation, for example, education. And education here is not just about, higher education. It is something that we need to invest early, because if you look at the trajectory of, child development, early childhood education is extremely important. It's, the period that, they develop, and very quickly also. So I think, of course, in terms of primary, secondary, and higher education, we've been doing quite a lot. But I think that there might be, something more we can do when it comes to, early child education and so on. Of course, skill here is also very important. As you probably know, that we just concluded, adopted, and launched the roadmap, to implement the human resources development in the changing world of work. So if you look at the declarations and also the roadmap, you can see, a numbers of key priority areas that we need to do in order to ensure that our people, possess the kind of skills that would allow them to be future ready, that would allow them to compete in the changing world of work. But then I think we should also, put emphasis here that there's a need for us to also look at how, such a roadmap can, empower our girls more, making them at the center of this roadmaps as well. It's not just an actor or beneficiary of this, roadmap, but somebody who will shape the directions of the implementation of the roadmap, and also if it requires corrective actions and so on. This is some things that we also hope to engage, and not just the kind of technical skills that we're looking at, but also soft skills that will allow them to learn, to adapt, and to change quickly. Because if we look at the world that we are in, it's not just the COVID-19. Actually, when we were drafting the declarations and also the roadmap, it was even before the outbreak. Because look at the region we are facing, with multiple challenges: the 4IR, the automations, the changing business practices, and also climate change and so on. But then again, now I think it's even more important than before, that we should place women at the center of this work, and making sure that this time they will be able to benefit from this, and they will be able to catch up. We will look at the first industrial revolution, the second industrial revolution, the third industrial revolution. I don't think that women and girls receive enough support and attentions, and that make them fall behind, not being able to benefit as much as possible from the development, the economic progress, and so on. The fourth areas that I would like to also highlight is the economic empowerment for women. Of course, we are trying to provide them with the kind of skills, with the kind of education that would allow them to compete in the labor market. But then again, we also see a large number of women who, for the reason of not being able to go to work, have their own business, or do some things that other than formal jobs, to support the family. And for example, agriculture. I read one report, and it says women produce most of the foods that we eat today. But when we are talking about the land title, the ownership, the land ownership, women do not have that much comparing to their male counterparts. So I think we need to remove the obstacle that would hinder the women from really reaching the potentials that they can. And it's not just about the land ownership, but for example, financial access to finance, and digital support and so on. For example, now we are in the midst of COVID-19. Many businesses go online, and there's this issues that how some of the small and medium enterprise, or even micro enterprise can adapt to this rapid changes. Of course, the governments have put in place some measure to support private sector to adapt to these changes, using more of the digital platform to continue to expand the business and so on. I think this is also a good opportunity for us to look at how, such a stimulus measure, such a policy interventions, we also, pay enough attention to women and girls, and making sure that, the economic empowerments will benefit, both men and girls, and, that they will be able to emerge stronger from this pandemic and from this crisis. Another things that I think it would be also very important here is, engaging girls and women in policy discussions and decision-making process. I know that it's also one of the domains in the report, which is looking at the political voices and engagement. We've been trying to come up with some, platforms that would allow our young people, not just girls in this case, to have direct, engagement with the leaders, so that they can express their concerns. They can also offer their recommendations on how, governments can do to support them. What kinds of policies that would reflect their interests, but also help them be part of the solution, because we shouldn't look at them as a group of people that needs the support, need us to help them all the time. They can also be agent of change. And I think what's important here is how we are going to create such an environment, so that they can be part of this changing process. And it's very important that they have a say in what would be, the directions of our community building process. And I'm glad to say is that, almost every year, the chair of ASEAN, often find a time slot, for our young people to have an interface with our leaders. So last times in June, we also had this youth interface with the leaders. And I'm very, proud of them. They've been talking about a lot of things. Of course, some of the things that, politicians might not be able to talk about. For example, climate change, you need to do more on this. You need to make sure to address the problem of inequality, So I think they provide a very interesting and important angle when it comes to what kind of policy priority we need to look at. And, promoting their roles in leadership. We can see many women and young girls now are, in a high level positions, both in the public sectors and also private sector, and that's a good thing. But of course, I don't think we should be complacent with the current progress that we have. There's still more we can do, and I think there's so many potentials and talented girls and women out there who can, do a great job. And, just this morning, for example, at the WTO, we just know that, the top 2 candidates are all women. So we can see, there's a growing numbers of women who occupy such a high office, and I'm sure that, they will do a great jobs. The last things that I would like to share is also, some things that was presented by our colleague from Plan Internationals as well. We've been, working hard in generating, policies, programs, and activities. Another thing is that we may need to further strengthen in the coming years is to, strengthen our monitoring and evaluation framework, making it robust, making it strong. So we can know, whether the things that we are doing really benefits, those we intend to help. Of course, many of these activities and program, I have to say, benefits people, but I think there's a potential for us to, look at ways on how we can better use the resources that we have. Of course, the resources are always scarce. So it's important that we put in place, a robust and strong monitoring and evaluation framework there. Now we're in a very critical year. Actually, this year we are working on the new work plan for all the sectoral bodies under the social cultural communities. And at the ASEAN Secretariat, we are now talking about, how can we further strengthen our ASCC database as well. So we can know, whether the things that we do, really create the kind of impact that we hope for. So I would like to end here and also, saying this, we need to work closely together. We need to invest more. Now we are no shortage of ideas and solutions and policies and programs. I have to say, what we need now is, more commitments, really do something about it and making sure we have the resources available, to implement all of this. Ideas, programs, and activities and recommendations. Thank you. We can discuss more during the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, and thank you for raising our spirits and for reminding us that, men are important part of this equation. Even though we want to see girls and women at the center, there's so much more that we can do as men. And before I introduce our next distinguished speaker, I'd just like to inform all the participants that we will extend the duration of our panel discussion a little bit longer, maybe for 15 minutes, because we still have 3 more distinguished speakers. And our next speaker is Ms. Vimala Dejwansa. She is the Deputy Country Director at Plan International Laos, the Program Director. Vimala is an epitome of women's empowerment herself, and we would like to hear from Vimala. What do you think, Vimala, how this particular tool, the Girls Leadership Index, could be used to inform policy making, to inform practice from your own professional experience in Lao PDR? Thank you so much, Vimala.
Thanks, Rasa, and good morning to excellencies and guests. With the Girls Leadership Index tool, it gives us a clarity and a focus specifically on an age group and a cohort where we know they have been overlooked before, or also have a subordinate position in many societies and cultures. And it's been something that, as many speakers have referred to already, something that is long-standing and very challenging to address. So when we have this kind of framework, as other speakers have alluded to, we can then look at what are the common areas that we have. It's about developing that shared understanding and then generating shared knowledge to be able to look at where are our gaps and where are our opportunities. And I think also part of the launch today, a lot of the discussion has been forward-looking. Us as an ASEAN community, what is it that we can, where it is that we want to go, and recognizing the challenges, whether it's climate change, the digital age, the opportunities that we all should have a share in, and also what we can contribute to. So having such a framework means that we can have a common language to look forward on. So when we look at then programming and the way that the government of Laos, with support from UNFPA and other partners like Plan, to develop an adolescent girl framework, it means that we can delve into the information that we have, and then we look at what's the specific programming that we need to develop, to invest in, and those things that we can see are all interlinked. It's not one sector that's going to address it. It's not, because we're talking about inequality. So I think that's how practical, that's how the tool is. And from that, we've also in Plan Lao have been able to develop an adolescence program where we're looking at issues that are important to young people, and then how they want to contribute to the development of the country. So that's one way. The other thing that I would like to raise here is that with an adolescent girl framework and also the indices, it's an opportunity to have a common way to get the voice of younger adolescent girls and girls involved. So as Kun Kai had talked about, that we were able to look at to use those indices to develop qualitative tools to gather then the experience and the voice of girls. And the same goes for the adolescent NOI or the adolescent framework from Laos, that because we have certain tools and tested methods, that then we can have those voices included. And it's something that is a little bit different, where in a lot of cultures, there is a hierarchy within societies, and so young people are less likely to speak out, and especially girls are less likely to put up their hand and say, I want to do this. So being able to have a tool and a framework that reminds us, to also listen to, and part of the way that we're looking at empowering girls is that they need champions and allies in adults, and for adults to be able to think back as well what it was like, and to remember the challenges. And I just the last point that I want to make is that this kind of framework helps us to think about when we were young, and the narrative that we heard. And we're not going to be able to change inequality until we also recognize that a lot of the things, a lot of the inequalities are because we have this subconscious bias and these very fixed mindsets about what the roles of men or women, or that there's only a particular way to be a good person or a good man, a good woman. And I think these sorts of frameworks and tools help us to see that actually there is a lot of diversity, and the ASEAN community is a perfect example of this, where there's to be able to be part of that community and celebrate that diversity. It helps us to all contribute to equality. Thanks, Rasa. That's my bit.
Thank you so much, Vimala. That's a great contribution, and again, another inspiration, motivational impetus. And thank you for reminding us that it's so important to have practical tools that we could use to measure where are we, and especially in these times, the dire times of pandemics and all the hardships that are upon us, so that we make sure that the girls' empowerment doesn't slip off the agenda. So thank you again. And our next distinguished speaker is Madam Laura Huong Cheng Lin, the Singapore's representative on women's rights to the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children, and the current chair of the ACWC. So, Madam Laura, it's such an honor and pleasure to have you with us on this panel discussion. Your achievements are just countless, and you've been such a role model for millions of girls across the region, as they say. And I would like to ask you to shed some light on some positive shifts and changes that have been seen over the past years in Southeast Asia when it comes to advancing gender equality and empowerment for girls. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. And may I first congratulate Plan International on completing this very important study, the importance of which was very well outlined by our previous speaker. It really takes me back to the basics of understanding that every girl that's educated will make sure that her family, when she becomes a mother and has her own family, will be better educated. And this is how society will improve. So to know where the gaps are through this index is really, really such a good tool. So congratulations, Plan. That's really wonderful legacy that you're going to leave us with. Where we have progressed a lot, I think, in the past decade has really been in the recognition of the importance of education and equal treatment for girls. And you can see that manifested in many ways throughout the ASEAN region. I think Khun Phuc really outlined the very important documents that have been passed that have enshrined into the ASEAN consciousness the importance of the elimination of violence against women, the elimination of violence against children, the rights of the child, and the overarching constitution of ASEAN that looks at equality for everyone, regardless of gender. So those are really positives because they imprint into the collective consciousness of society where we ought to be going. And through the regional action plans that have been formulated by the ASEAN community, there are avenues at which a society can move towards these declarations becoming not just declarations, but actions that impact society. So in the majority of ASEAN countries, girls have increasingly equal access to primary and secondary education. And I think in many ASEAN countries, you'll find that tertiary institution enrollment and graduation is very largely female, and that's a wonderful development. The cultural norms, you can see, therefore, have shifted, and the support for women and girls' education is very strong. In Singapore, for example, because I'm from Singapore, all children, regardless of gender, enjoy equal access to quality education in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And I think we are all agreed that these are the subjects that will take our societies and our children and adults into the next generation of development. We have moved into a world that's increasingly dependent on strong knowledge and strong foundations in these subjects in order to develop. And I think that I'm really heartened by the fact that in Singapore, you find that women account for 61% of the natural, physical, mathematical sciences enrollment and 31% of the information technology enrollment in polytechnics. So I think this is really moving in the right direction. I think women are very skilled in these areas. They are not dependent on so much physical ability, but mental development. And I think that that is the leveling off of development in future. So in this digital age that we live in, the pervasiveness of social media and other web-based online platforms provide an opportunity for adolescent girls to learn and to have their voices heard, to cultivate their skills and grow into themselves as independent and empowered individuals. I think the number of girls using online tools is really enormous. I think that in all societies, girls as well as boys have a real ability to access the information and the networking that is available to them this way. I think that we have come to the realization that the whole of society and nations benefit from girls' empowerment. And to prepare adolescent girls into a world confronted with the fourth industrial revolution, it is crucial to ensure the engagement with the STEM subjects and that gender stereotypes, discriminatory forms, norms that keep women restricted to the lower paying, lower skilled jobs, that needs to be reconstructed. There is now a unique opportunity to evolve and take actions to address the current marginalization of women in both economic, political, and social spheres. So an increasingly more level playing field for girls, that's what we are seeing. And I'm proud to see that the highest ranking countries in the leadership index that we have just been shown are Singapore, Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand. They're all ASEAN countries. So I take great heart in the fact that ASEAN has been able to work well in this field, and the results will be seen in this index. I chair the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of Women and Children, the ACWC, and this is our 10th anniversary this year. Since its establishment in 2010, ASEAN has been at the forefront of pushing forward the realization and fulfillment of the rights of all girls in ASEAN. The ACWC is the primary ASEAN body responsible for supporting ASEAN member states in implementing the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Engagement of girls and boys is highly beneficial to societies as they are the leaders of tomorrow. So last year, ACWC advocated the adoption of 2 ASEAN declarations: the Declaration on the Protection of Children from All Forms of Online Exploitation and Abuse, and the ASEAN Declaration on the Rights of Children in the Context of Migration. Currently, we are developing the regional plans of action for both ASEAN declarations in collaboration with the Senior Officials Meeting on Social Welfare Development, SOMSWAD. So this leadership index and this analysis certainly complements the work that we are doing. And I think that the advancement of the rights of girls and young women will be heightened. The awareness of this will be heightened through the index. And this will aid the blossoming of our girls as they enter into adulthood. I think that we have a common goal, and we all recognize the importance of this. And I think that the action plans that will be put in place will help us towards this golden rule. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, and thank you for your kind words of encouragement, and also congratulations to ASEAN, to Singapore, to Vietnam, the Philippines, Thailand, all the ASEAN member states for scoring so well in this index. And there's so much more that we remain to be learning from, our respective experiences. Now, as we always like to hear from girls and young women themselves, I'm particularly pleased to introduce our next distinguished speaker. She's a young woman from Vietnam. Her name is Tu Wu, and Tu is currently engaged in life coaching activities, but she is a young woman of many talents and many interests. And I would like to invite Tu to share with us from her own perspective and perspective of her peers about the key barriers that girls and young women experience on their way to empowerment, on their way to leadership, but also to shed some light on how these barriers could be overcome. So, Tu, please, the floor is yours. And welcome to this panel discussion.
Thank you, Rasha, and hi, thank you everyone for having me here. I'm so glad to be here and listen from you all. So it was not until 2023 that I dug deeper into my femininity, and to be honest, the more unconscious imprints of barriers of genders discovered, the more I got surprised, since I have always considered myself as someone with strong independence and self-awareness. So first, maybe it's about presence myself, really. I remember one teacher once said that since I'm a girl, I should be more certain to please others. And second, maybe I have been always encouraged to sacrifice my dream to play a more supportive role for men. And I used to be in a toxic relationship that my partner abused me both physically and mentally. That's okay that I'm overcome that, but now looking back then, I think that what I lack of most, it's not just the understanding of gender, but my self-respect, which I believe most girls are still lacking of as well. So how did I overcome those barriers? I believe that I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by the unconditional love of my family and friends. My mother said that if a boy treats you badly, you can just leave boldly. Even when you get married after all, you can always end it if it doesn't work anymore. So I think that my parents have to work hard themselves to letting go of any expectations and prevent themselves from being too influenced by the opinion of a traditional marriage in Vietnam. So I want to say thank you first to my parents and then my friends. And the fact that I actively participate in community program and project, and people advise me, they help me to build my strong leadership and understanding that help me liberate my negative mindset of gender. And yes, so currently I'm still facing some barrier as a young woman. Sometimes I forget that I'm capable of doing anything I want to, and I constantly listen to statements that start with saying a girl should or a girl must. I don't dare to speak for all the young women in Southeast Asia, but personally, I believe that there are two biggest barriers that prevent girls to become leaders in their communities. So first is the external barriers. The conservative norm, social norm, and mindset insist on the minor role of a woman, like the women are facing the wounds built by their family, school, and community. And that's really sorry to know about that. Every story I heard that her parents prevent her from being someone she wants to become. So I think that this way of thinking exists everywhere, from newspaper, television, to official textbook, and that's very dangerous for both boys and girls during their early year. So, and the second thing is the inner barrier. Girls who are keep imposing limitation upon themselves, like that will be much more normal to dependent on others than to nurturing her own confidence to take responsibility for her own life. And I myself trust that the most sustainable way to contribute to gender equality starts with the inward transformations of every individuals. However, I think it's really much more great for us to work together. So we need a safe environment in family and school for children, both girls and boys, that embrace an overworked view of equality, because they will become the future generations. So, and I think that I myself experienced the strategic guidance from professional organizations such as International, Plan International or UN, and I believe that each one who are working toward the equality must be well equipped with a peaceful and respectful attitude and the correct understanding of the community. That will be much more sustainable for our work. And last but not least, without the patronage from legal governments and relevant agencies, I think that the campaign will not be spread widely and effectively. So I myself currently maintain just a small coaching fund to help young women overcome the gender stereotype. And with my teammate, we are working on a nonprofit course focusing on the individuality, because we share the view that goes beyond gender issue to address human rights. I think that everyone should have a right to decide their life to be themselves. So playing the blaming game doesn't have, because we will all end up victims. And the last thing I want to say that girls, you can always step out of your comfort zone and be anyone you want to be, love whoever that make you happy. So just live your own meaningful life. So thank you, that's all I want to say.
Thank you so much too. Thank you for your powerful testimony, but also for your engagement. You know, you are a living example of how the transformation starts from ourselves, but you also reminded us that, you know, overcoming the inner, internal and external barriers, it takes all of us to join our hands and our hearts and, you know, to be joined in this solidarity and action. So I take this opportunity to thank all the wonderful distinguished speakers. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your passion. And thank you for bringing us even more closely back together in this ongoing struggle and ongoing efforts towards achieving gender equality and empowerment for girls and for every human being. Thank you all, and I'll pass the floor back on to our kind hosts and to check whether we still have some time for any questions and answers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rasha and our esteemed panelists. Unfortunately, we are facing a time constraint, but we welcome all participants to submit their questions through the chat box or through email, and we will respond to them accordingly. Moving on, we will now welcome Mr. Miguel Musni, the Senior Officer of Poverty Eradication and Gender Division of the ASEAN Secretariat, to conclude the event. Mr. Miguel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Casey. Good morning, everyone. We have captured or tried to capture the key discussion points based on the presentations and insights shared during this morning. And this is our attempt at sharing the key messages and some considerations for moving forward. On the screen, we can see some of the key messages. The first one is that girls' rights are human rights. Girls are active agents of transformative change. Different girls live in different contexts and face multiple barriers and challenges. It is important to unlock the power of girls, enliven their spirit of self-determination, and instill the value of equity and inclusiveness, especially in the context of the new normal. Investing on the development of girls from childhood to adolescence is a strategic development approach. Such investments seize the opportunities during the critical window of girls' adolescence, which will reverberate to adulthood at the individual level and society at large. The Girls Leadership Index provides a comprehensive framework on monitoring and fostering the conditions that would realize the voice, agency, and leadership of girls. The data and information tells the story of girls, including the gaps and opportunities, and provide credible evidence for policy and program development. Lastly, everyone has a role to fulfill, and partnership is key. A holistic approach is fundamental in establishing and rolling out the Girls Leadership Index, and broadly, any initiative aimed at unleashing the potentials of adolescent girls. Now, looking at matters that we can consider in moving forward, recognize and change social norms that perpetuate and reinforce gender stereotypes that unduly disadvantage girls. Address intergenerational gender disparities as early as during childhood. Consider developing and adopting adolescent girls' development frameworks and utilize the Girls Leadership Index as a tool in developing such frameworks. This may lead to enhancing access of every girl to education and ensure that they stay and finish their education. Ensure access of all girls to reproductive health information and services, and also engage adolescent girls in substantive and meaningful dialogues and consultations and in the whole development process. Also, it's important to engage boys and men in the conversation to foster a sense of joint ownership, responsibility, and accountability on advancing gender equality in general and empowering adolescent girls in particular. And lastly, we can build on and utilize frameworks for cooperation to scale up multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder partnerships to nurture and sustain an empowering environment for girls and translate political commitments at the national and regional levels into concrete actions. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the key discussion points that our team was able to capture during this morning's event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miguel. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed participants, we will now move towards the photo session of this event. If we could kindly request all participants to turn on their video. I will shortly count down from 3. Please be ready for the photo taking session. We're just waiting for a few more participants to turn their video on. All right, counting down. 3, 2, 1. And one more. 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much for your participation. I will now give the floor to His Excellency for closing. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thanks too for sharing your stories, the challenges you've been through, and the strengths and commitment to overcome all those challenges. It surely reminds us and encourages to do more to support our adults and girls and young women. I would like to conclude by encouraging all of our colleagues here to translate our political commitment into concrete actions and invest in implementing all of them so that our adults and girls and young women will benefit from this. Once again, thank you for your taking time to participate in this important workshop. Thank you very much.